As the gods observed the chaos unfolding on the battlefield, their hearts grew heavy. Though they had distanced themselves from humanity, they had not yet forgotten the creatures they had so lovingly created. Watching the djinn wreak havoc on the mortal realm, the gods understood that this battle was hopelessly unfair. If they wanted the earth to survive and for humanity to reclaim its place, they would have to intervene. In their celestial realm, a mighty council was convened. Anahita, goddess of the sea, spoke first, her voice carrying the weight of sorrow.
If we do nothing, the earth will fall into darkness and the humans we created will perish,
she said. Mithra, goddess of the sun, agreed.
The balance has been shattered. We must act to restore it.
All eyes turned to Uhura's children, the rulers of the gods' kingdom in their father's absence. After much deliberation, a decision was reached. They would walk upon the earth and gift humanity with powers capable of matching the djinn and their fallen master. Descending from the heavens, the gods moved among the mortal kingdoms. They found the once proud kings and leaders broken in spirit, their heads bowed in despair. The weight of their defeat had drained them of hope, and they sat in their ruined halls, awaiting the inevitable end of the human race. The gods entered these halls, their radiant presence both awe-inspiring and humbling. The humans fell to their knees, tears streaming down their faces as they recognized their creators. Anahita stepped forward, her voice as soothing as a gentle stream.
Rise, children of the earth, this is not your end. We have come to restore your strength and reclaim your destiny.
Mithra raised her hand, and a brilliant light filled the room.
You are not alone in this fight,
she declared.
We will grant you powers, forged in our image, to stand against the darkness that threatens your world.
One by one, the gods spoke, their words reigniting a flicker of hope in the hearts of humanity. The kings, once filled with despair, stood tall again, their spirits bolstered by the presence of their divine creators. Together they began to plan how to harness the gifts the gods would bestow and turn the tide against the djinn. As the gods stood before the shattered kings and their people, pledging their aid, a sudden silence fell over the hall. At the rear of the divine assembly, a towering figure began to emerge from the shadows. His form was immense, shaped like a man but far greater, his body covered in soot, ashes, and the molten gleam of forged metal. He moved with the weight of centuries, every step echoing like the hammer of a blacksmith upon an anvil. This was Thimna, the god of forging and creator of metal, his presence both awe-inspiring and fearsome. The air around him seemed to shimmer with heat, as if he carried the forge itself within him. When he spoke, his voice was like the grinding of steel and the roar of a blazing fire.
You cannot defeat the djinn with the weapons you wield now,
he declared, his eyes glowing like embers.
Their fiery forms will mock your steel, and their power will crush your courage. But I will teach you to forge weapons unlike any you have known. Blades that can pierce the heart of flame, and arrows that can shatter the spirits of ash. Under my guidance, the tools of your salvation will be born.
Thimna stepped forward, his hand outstretched, as if offering the strength of the forge itself to the mortals before him. The blacksmiths among the humans instinctively stepped closer, drawn by the promise of his words. He began to instruct them, his every movement a lesson, his every word a command. Soon, the forges of humanity were alight, their flames fueled by divine power, as swords and arrows were crafted with the might of Thimna's wisdom. As the first sword emerged, glowing with an otherworldly brilliance, a cry of hope rose among the humans. The gods had not abandoned them. With weapons in hand and divine allies at their side, they began to believe that victory might be possible after all. With their newfound power and weapons forged by the divine wisdom of Thymna, humanity began to gather its strength. The sound of hammers striking metal filled the air as massive black swords, strong and heavy, were crafted in the forges. These weapons, carried by the hands of mortal warriors, shone with the promise of hope and vengeance. Mithra, her radiant presence rivaling the sun itself, stepped forward, her golden hair cascading like rivers of light. She raised her gaze to the heavens and whispered to the sun with a voice as soothing as the dawn.
I promise you this.
She said, her words both commanding and tender.
Your light will never falter on the battlefield until the last sword of humanity is shattered.
The sun seemed to blaze brighter, its light reflecting the brilliance of her beauty. As the mortals gazed upon her, many felt their hearts swell with awe and admiration, unable to look away from her ethereal form. Anahita, a vision of serene majesty, followed. Her flowing robes mirrored the gentle waves of the sea, and her eyes sparkled like sunlit waters.
I will fight beside you, all of you,
she declared, her voice like the murmuring of a calm tide.
My waters will cleanse the battlefield of fear and quench the fires of destruction.
Humans could not help but marvel at her, their hearts captured by her beauty and grace, finding strength in the love she inspired. Theo, the god of the wind, moved next with a presence both commanding and swift.
I shall run with you, swift as the wind, and shatter the enemy's lines. Together we will scatter them like leaves in a storm.
He promised, his confidence infectious, though his appearance could not overshadow the radiance of Mithra and Anahita. With the divine beings walking among them, their beauty and power inspiring an awe that words could not describe, the human army began to march. The ground trembled under the weight of their steps, the black swords glinting under the ever-present sunlight. Hope burned brightly in their hearts as they moved toward the djinns' victorious army, their resolve unyielding. Ahead of them, the djinn awaited, their fiery forms flickering with menace. But this time, humanity was no longer alone. The gods themselves marched beside them, their beauty and strength filling the mortals with courage. As the two forces drew closer, the air seemed to crackle with anticipation, the promise of a battle that would echo through the ages. The battlefield erupted in chaos as the armies of humanity, bolstered by the gods, clashed with the fiery djinn. The earth trembled under the weight of their fury, and the sky seemed to darken despite Mithra's unwavering sunlight, which illuminated every corner of the battlefield. The humans, wielding their black, heavy swords, charged forward with a ferocity that matched the roaring flames of their enemies. Mithra stood at the edge of the battlefield, her radiance guiding the soldiers like a beacon. Every strike of a sword seemed blessed by her light, every step of the warriors emboldened by her presence. Anahita, with waves of shimmering water swirling around her, moved through the chaos like a tempest, extinguishing the djinn's flames and shielding the soldiers from fiery onslaughts. Theo was a blur, his form darting between the lines of battle like a storm wind. He tore through the ranks of the djinn, scattering them with gusts so powerful they sent even the mighty creatures tumbling. The mortals fought valiantly beside him, their blades now finding their marks as the djinn began to falter. Amidst the battlefield's chaos, Thymna strode forward, a figure of imposing strength. His form was wreathed in the heat of the forge, and his molten hands wielded a hammer that shattered the very earth. With each strike, the ground quaked, opening fissures that consumed the lesser djinn. The battlefield was transforming under his might, as if the earth itself had turned against the fiery invaders. The djinn fought back with unrelenting fury. Their fiery swords clashed against the human blades, and their terrifying cries echoed across the land. The great djinn, their minds still a force to be reckoned with, tried to sow chaos within the human ranks. Yet the gods shielded their allies, blocking the whispers of madness and restoring order. The battle raged on for what seemed like an eternity. The ground was scorched, the air thick with smoke and ash. But slowly the tide turned. The djinn, overwhelmed by the combined might of the gods and humanity, began to retreat. Their fiery forms dimmed, and their confidence waned as the humans pressed forward with unyielding determination. As the djinn fled, Thimna raised his hammer high. With a resounding strike, he summoned the earth to open wide, revealing a vast cavern beneath. It was a chasm of molten rock and unyielding metal, glowing with an ominous red hue. The fleeing djinn were forced underground, their fiery bodies dragged into the abyss. Thimna worked tirelessly, his hammer shaping the cavern into an impenetrable prison. Walls of metal, thicker than mountains and hotter than any forge, rose to seal the djinn within. The great prison resembled a hellish domain, a place of eternal confinement for the fiery creatures. When the last of the djinn was locked away, Thimna stood at the entrance of the prison.
Here you shall remain,
he declared, his voice echoing across the battlefield.
This will be your fate for eternity, a prison forged from the very earth you sought to destroy.
The gods and humans stood together, weary but victorious. The battlefield, though scarred, was a testament to their unity and strength. The djinn were no longer a threat, their fiery wrath confined beneath the earth. Humanity, with the gods still beside them, began the long journey of rebuilding their world, their hearts filled with hope and gratitude. As the years turned into centuries, the great battle that had once defined the fate of humanity faded into the realm of myth. What was once a tale of valor and divine intervention became a bedtime story, whispered by mothers to their children. The djinn, the gods, and the heroic kings of Partha and Partins became characters in a distant fairy tale, their deeds recounted in soft tones under the glow of a flickering heart. Time marched forward, erasing the scars of that ancient war. Kingdoms rose and fell, their banners replaced by new emblems as revolutions and conquests reshaped the world. The memory of the common enemy that had once united humanity was forgotten, buried under layers of history and the ambitions of new rulers. The noble lines of the great kings of Partha and Partins were broken, their legacies reduced to mere whispers. Only a handful of descendants remained, scattered and unaware of the bloodline they carried. They lived ordinary lives, oblivious to the weight of the inheritance they bore. Yet not all was lost to the sands of time. Far to the northwest, beyond the borders of the known kingdoms, the Black Castle still stood. Its ominous silhouette, carved from obsidian stone, loomed against the horizon like a dark sentinel. Within its walls resided the Shadow Knights, a mysterious order sworn to a forgotten purpose. The Shadow Knights, their faces hidden behind blackened helms, had not forgotten the truth. They remained ever vigilant, guarding the gates of the great prison beneath the earth. Though the world around them had moved on, they held steadfast to their duty, ensuring that the fiery djinn remained confined in their hellish domain. Unseen and unsung, they protected humanity's reckoning, their silent watch unbroken through the centuries. To the outside world, they were little more than a legend, figures shrouded in mystery. But to the djinn, still imprisoned in the depths of the earth, they were the unyielding barrier that kept them from rising again. And so, while the world forgot its past, the Shadow Knights remembered, their duty eternal and unshaken by the passage of time. They were the keepers of a story that could never truly end, a living reminder of the battles fought and the dangers that still lingered beneath the surface. The room was dimly lit by the glow of a small fire, casting flickering shadows across the faces of a group of children seated on the floor. They listened intently, their eyes wide with wonder as the old man spoke. His voice, rough with age yet steady, carried the weight of countless stories.